Hey lads, it's me, Casimir. Today we're gonna be doing a little bit of a hoi4 tutorial because the tutorial in this game it's not that good. It doesn't really teach you everything that the game is. So today I'm gonna be doing France. I guess I can start off by explaining the mode. You can get around by using the arrow keys. They're alright. I particularly don't use them because I hate the arrow keys. Hopefully, someday they'll change it to W, A, and D, but it's beyond my hopes. Iron Man mode, very simple. When you turn it on, you can't cheat. You can actually get achievements. So, there you go. You can also do historical AI focuses. Turning this off means that AI will do ahistorical things. They will do things that they didn't do in real life. Turning this on basically means that Germany does what Germany did in real life. So that can go off. Difficulty basically just means this way you get better buffs, this way the AI gets better buffs. Custom game rules, you can strengthen nations, you can change things with the game to make it more chaotic, less chaotic. Maybe you don't like a certain feature, maybe you can turn that feature off in here. Yeah. Maybe you don't like forts, so you can just turn them down to level 1. You can also set paths for nations that have focus trees if you want, if you want certain things to happen in your game. So I think we're gonna do France because they have a lot of things to look at. So I think that's a good candidate to do this on. I think it's a good choice. I will say, I think if you're a new player starting out, one of the best things you can do is start with minor nations in the Axis or allies. So for example, play Hungary and go fascist and go with the Germans, or go as Canada or something, just to help win the war, you know. So basic organization, let's just go through each of these when you start a game. Let's see if you've just loaded in this France. Well, research, that's the first thing, so let's do it. I would say the best thing to start out with is do this right here in infantry tab, is do just whatever this is, because usually it's old and it's just going to be good. So there are a lot of things you can research. In the new update, doctrines have been moved somewhere else, so I will not be talking about them yet. There's support companies, which usually if you want to build good infantry, or you want, for example, I'm just going to explain to you these does. Engineer company improves entrenchment and defense, I believe. Yes, so this, if you want good defense and you want good trenches, I guess get these guys. Scouts just mean your divisions are gonna see more, which will improve them. Military police help with resistance, I believe. Suppression bonus, I don't know if they're really useful, but if you have a build where you think suppression would help you, then go you. I guess this will be good if you're trying to make divisions that want to suppress resistance. Maintenance companies, really good to put in armored or motorized divisions because they make your divisions reliable. You keep stuff. It also allows you to capture more equipment from the enemy, which is good. Field hospitals are very good as well. They literally keep people alive. So put them in if you can. If you don't really have the manpower, don't put them in, Logistics are also pretty good. They just reduce supply usage. They just give you more organization. It's just nice to have. All these are nice to have, but you don't have to put them all in. Tanks. This is what tanks look like now. Since I have the No Step Back DLC, this is what it looks like. I'm not going to explain too much of that yet. Artillery, this is what this looks like. There's anti-tank, normal artillery, anti-air. Naval, this might look a little confusing, but they're basically all these kinds of ships. Destroyers, cruisers, and there's just related technologies. You can see heavy ships, submarines, carriers, and there's all this stuff. I will say, down here, you do want to make sure you have this research, because this will allow you to do naval invasions. And if you want to do naval invasions with more units, you can go down and research this. And these are generally good for free slots if you're Britain or something. This is another good thing to look at. You don't want to research starting out unless you like don't have fighters. These are fighters. They basically give you air superiority. Close air support's very good. It does damage to ground units. Naval bombers do damage to naval stuff. Heavy fighters, I don't really use them. I don't know. I don't know if they're any good. I guess if you want to use them, you can. Tactical bombers, strategic bombers are very precise. I prefer them if I want to do bombing. This is another thing you make sure you want to research is electronic mechanical engineering. Some nations have it researched by default, but if you don't, just go ahead and pop that. And then the last thing is basic machine tools, because this is the industrial tab and it's rather important. I will say there's a decision for you to make right here if you want to do concentrated industry or dispersed. Usually I do dispersed just because I think that it has usually better bonuses, because if I'm playing a big nation, if I'm playing a small nation, I will always go concentrated because it just gives you more stuff if you're a small nation. I just went through all those. Forgot to do this. Free civilian factory. So basically, you have this. This is construction. Let's start here. So you have 33 civilian factories as at the start as France, but 14 of them are in use. Why? Consumer goods. Basically, the people need factories to make consumer goods, things that they want to consume. You can raise or lower how many factories are being used by your population with this right here. Basically, as you mobilize, more and more factories are given to you instead of your people. So if you make sure, if you're in war, you want to make sure you have war economy so you can get more civilian factories for the war. The general strategy, as I see it, is if you're building factories, you don't really want to build too many dockyards. I would say if you're going to build a navy, just build 5 if you already have dockyards. Like if you already have 10, just build 5 more, and then you can put out 5 ships. 3 ships at a time. What I'd recommend is if you're just going to do civilian and then military, is build civilian factories, till 1938 if you're just in this, and then switch over to mills. You might need to do it earlier or later if you're going to do a war earlier or a war later. So that is just the general template. Match and mix as needed. I'm going to go over supply very soon, but I'm just going to go ahead and say, hey, let's just build, here. Great. Free military factories. This is your production tab. You make sure if you have this little thing here, that means that you do not have enough of it. That means how much you need. So you can see that we need 747 of them. Right here, you can see that we have outdated tanks, and we need 700 for upgrades. This is also our naval production. I will go over this if I just quickly if you shift click, you cancel all production lines. So just what I just did. I don't really care, so I wouldn't say follow this. This is probably not what you should do if you're doing France. I just did that quickly. Please put more thought into it. I will say, important, you should build carriers at the start. If you're France, you can see we only have 10, so let's just build a carrier, and then let's build 2 cruisers. And you can also do here, and you can choose how many you want to build. And you can also click on this button right here, and you can select where you want it to be put out. I misclicked. So please do that. You don't want to lose your ships and have them deployed in the middle of nowhere. So know where your ships are going. I will say I think the current meta is to build like a few carriers and then spam out battleships. But for Navy, just as a general thing, there is 3 kinds of ships, I believe.
Écoutez.
If I select this, there are going to be screens, there is main ships or capital ships, and then there are submarines. I don't really use submarines. That's really up to you. Submarines just sink things. If there's any kind of air or major naval presence, they're just gonna die. Unless you have like really good subs. But I usually don't really spend too much time thinking about the Navy, so I just do what I know. So you usually want to have about 4 destroyers or 2 cruisers. I would say always more is better, because screens are trying to protect your main ships. So you want to make sure that your main ships are protected. But of course, your screens, if they're cruisers and destroyers, can also have guns, so they can also shoot. So having more of them never hurts. So you want to have 2 cruisers or 2 or 4 destroyers per heavy ships, and that's exclusive. You know, you could have, I guess, a cruiser and a destroyer, or 2 destroyers, I guess, and that'll cover. But you know, really mix and match, I guess. You know, whatever you need to do. I guess, yeah, 1 destroyer is worth 1 cruiser is worth 2 destroyers. Actually, no, I haven't done this. National focuses. Now, this is then the focus tree for me, because I have all the DLCs. So some things that I say in this tutorial might not be accurate for you, because you do not have the DLCs. If you don't, when they're on sale, buy them. That's basically what I will say. If you like the game, when they're on sale, just buy them. I think in order of importance, I think it's like Waking the Tiger. No Step Back is really good, I will say. La Resistance, Man the Guns, Together for Victory. Actually, I'll put Together for Victory ahead of Man the Guns. And then everything else is not really that needed. Yeah. I already did. Yeah, I'll keep it down. That was funny. Okay, so focus trees. Basically, you want to make sure you're doing these. I'm not going to explain too much about them. Some take 70 days, some take 35 days. It's really up to the focus tree. Usually, actually I will say, like you can see, if I was going to build a bunch of naval stuff as France, I could do this, and then I'd get, 4 dockyards, I'd be pretty set. And then air focuses gives you like air experience and air bases for free. You know, make sure to do your industrial focuses. You know, make sure to be out and look, like right here, 4 military factories for free. And you can also see like, oh, I get like 2 free tank units here, or you know, I get to extend the Maginot Line, or I get extra forts here. And then I can do like development, get infrastructure and factories, and I can do I get research slots down here. So just make sure to map out your focus tree and see where you need to get stuff. I'm gonna go on to the next part here, which is industry. I'll select a focus real quick.
Écoutez.
We have unassigned divisions, so let's quickly assign some. France has 53 divisions. I'm just gonna put them in the mainland. I'm going to try and select them out.
Écoutez.
Actually, I think I could just
Gardez vos rangs.
take out the tanks.
Gardez vos rangs.
If I take out the tanks,
Aux ordres.
left. Perfect. So this would be a good configuration. You want to have 24 divisions per, because when you assign a commander right here,
Gardez vos rangs.
they can only usually hold 24. And I will say again, drag, hold over, and then you can select units.
Attention.
You can also zoom in and just click on them, and then right click them to order them around.
Pareil.
And then you can have your motorized here, and you can find a guy like Ougon, and then there, he's got traits. I will say traits are important. He's an armor officer, you know. And then you can also do a thing where you can create an army group, which will allow you to make large orders. So I can assign this guy, and then I can make orders where all these guys, both these armies will be selected to one order based on this guy's group.
Attention.
And then France also has divisions out here in Africa, which are also very important. And you can just click this button and see where divisions are. I'm not really being too thoughtful about this. You might want to be more thoughtful if you're playing France right now. This is not a French guide. I'm just taking all the divisions that are not on the mainland. And you can also create new theaters. See, new theater, where, you know, you can have things, you know, independent. This thing just means you have low manpower. I don't really think I need to explain this too much. You can just look here. Actually, I will quickly go over that. This is political power. You use this to make decisions, appoint ministers, just many things. Stability is how popular your government is, or that's the people support. If you have low stability, you will get debuffs. So you can see I'm getting minus 0.40% factory output. War support is also how quickly, how willingness your people are to go to war. The lower your war support is, the less stuff you're gonna get. So your mobilization is going to be lower, so your people are going to enter this manpower pool slower, and you're also going to surrender easier because people don't want to fight. Manpower is how many people you can recruit, how many people are wishing to join the army right now. Yeah, I think that's pretty simple. You can up your conscription law right here with some debuffs, many debuffs, and you'll get more. There's a lot of stats in there for extra or less, so you can read those as needed. This basically just shows you how many factories you have. You can hover over it and you can see I have 8 military factories, 10 net dockyards, and 33 civilian factories. This is fuel. It shows you how much capacity you have, how much you're gaining per day, and how much current fuel you have. It shows you your maximum consumption if you look under Army, Air, and Navy. So you might want to say, if I'm using a lot of oil or fuel, and I'm in the peak of the war, I can always go down to trade here, and I can trade with another nation, and you can do this stuff here, and you can trade, and you'll get more oil per day, which would be good. I will go over all these tabs now as needed. These are decisions. These are decisions you can make. You don't always want to be making decisions. You just want to look through and say, this gives me extra research speed, but I hit to stability, so if you have high stability, you might want to take this. If your party isn't well supported, your political party, you might want to take a decision to lower or raise it. You can do prospecting for resources. You can get extra rubber. You can dismantle the Maginot Line, which as France you'd probably never want to do. And then the next one is the intelligence agency. You basically have an agency, you have agents, you can send them places to do things. If you don't have law resistance, you won't have this. Don't worry too much about it. It's not the most important thing, but I'd recommend at least creating one and doing defense stuff so you will capture agents. I've already gone over research. This tab is not very useful. It just shows you stuff. Usually you're going to want to click on nations and stuff, which you can get to this just by right-clicking on nations. If you click on a nation, then click here, you can get to it, or you can just right-click, and then you can get all this diplomacy stuff. I won't go through this. You can justify war goals if your ideology and world tension allow you. World tension is how tense the world is. Certain actions raise it and certain actions lower it. You can guarantee a nation's independence. Some nations start off the game guaranteeing other nations. You can ask for military access or offer military access, which allows you to put divisions in another nation's country. Docking rights allow you to station ships in another nation's docks. A non-aggression pact basically means that you promise not to declare war on each other. There are certain things that after 12 months you can break a non-aggression pact. if you have certain prerequisites. You can also negotiate licenses, which allows you to see their production lines, or production licenses, which basically means you can see what they make, and you can say, oh, I want that, and then you can make what they make. You could do a lend lease, which basically means you can send them equipment every month or fuel every week or day. You can also request a lend lease from other nations, where you basically say, this is what we need, can you send us this? If a nation is at war or in a civil war, you can send them volunteers if world tension or your ideology permits you. Expeditionary forces are a step up from this. If it's another nation in your faction, they or you can send each other a certain amount of your divisions that they will be able to command. Return expeditions. If you have expeditions, you can get them back or return them. Request garrison support. This basically means that if you cannot garrison an area, you can basically request this, and if the nation allows you, they will give you a bunch of manpower to help garrison an area. Trade. You can also see how many civilian factories you have available. I will say, the more things you do, the more things you trade, the less factories you have to build other factories and other things. So always make sure you're managing how many factories you're using for each. Basically, they're based on your economy law, which is right here. Right here. You basically give more resources or no resources to market. That's pretty simple. Basically, every nation exports a certain amount. And you can see who you're actually exporting to. So you can see that France makes 741 steel, but we export 374 of it. Now, we have enough that we don't really need to worry about that. But maybe in some cases, taking some back by changing your economy law would be good for you. Usually it's not. If you don't have enough of a resource, you can click on that area, and then you can click on that country, and there usually is, if I can, a little gear, a clipboard, and hashtag. If you click that, it will automatically preset how much of that resource you need. See, if I click this, it doesn't say I need any, but you can also do it manually by dragging or choosing. And you can see that each rate of 8 is one civilian factory. So if I did this, I wouldn't be able to construct any buildings because I'd be buying so much. So you want to make sure to balance that. Construction tab, I already went over this, but you can also build things like infrastructure, which will allow for some good buffs. Air bases, which will allow you to build more planes. Anti-air, which will automatically shoot down enemy aircraft. Military factories make military equipment. Civilian factories make other things and can be used for trade goods. Naval dockyards repair and build ships. Fuel silos store fuel. Rocket sites store rockets. Synthetic refineries help build fuel and rubber. Nuclear reactors help build nukes. Railways are used to transport things to places. This is the infrastructure map. The lighter the blue, the better. But the red and orange is bad. So you can basically click a province, or click on a province with a railway, and then click and drag. And just not drag. You can just click and draw. And then it will show you. You can just basically build a railroad. And you can also click here to upgrade railroads. There's also supply hubs now, which basically mean where supply comes from. So where supply for your units comes from. So you want to make sure that these are, where the front line is, or you might need to upgrade them. And you want to improve connections to them. That is the essential basics of hoi4 supply. So you want to make sure that if your divisions are not well supplied, you want to make sure to either start building some railroads, build some infrastructure, or maybe you need to build a supply hub. Forts just basically mean that there's a penalty for attacking it, and basically means that it'll be harder to attack. Coastal forts basically mean that it'll be harder to naval invade. So if you're worried, if you're the Germans and you're worried about a naval invasion here, let's say, Trophys, you could build some naval forts, and maybe the Allies will not D-Day you. Production, very simple. There are some nice little filters here. You can see, you can sort by if you need to do that. There are all these things here which you can hover over to see what they do. You can also see their resources, how much you have left to use. Divisions. This is where a lot of things happen. You can see how much you need for spy operations, how much you need for garrisons to garrison your country, supply trucks, upgrades, or reinforcements. So let's train a division. No location set. We can set a location for that division to build to. And then you can hover over this to see how much equipment that single division needs. And you can also hover over this one to see how much you need in total, or just this to see. You can also see how quickly they are training. You can sometimes deploy a unit when it's not fully trained, if you need to, but they will have combat debuffs if they are not fully trained. Let's go into the division designer. This is where I will need to bring up the cheat menu. You use army experience to upgrade your divisions. This is the most basic infantry template, I believe, just this amount of infantry. I will say that right now, the meta is either 20 combat width right here, or 21 combat width right here. There are a lot of stats, and I'm going to walk through the important ones real quick. This is your support companies. This is your main combat. This is what they're going to be called. This is how important they are. So elite units will get supply before anyone else, and reserves will get less supply. This is your support companies. These are things like recon, anti-air, recon, again, and anything else in that kind of support area in the research. These are battalions. You can see that we can do infantry, anti-air, artillery, and mountaineers. But if I go here, I can also do armored battalions, where I can do heavy, light, or medium tanks, or armored cars, cavalry, motorized infantry, or motorized artillery and anti-air. I will say that I believe that there are two main types of infantry you should use. There is pure 20 widths, which are basically combat with 20 units. Basically, these are just basic infantry that should be able to defend well enough and attack well enough, where you should be fine. There's also the second most, probably the most used one, which is called 7 and 2s, where you have a little bit of artillery in there, and that will make your divisions a lot better for attacking. So maybe you want to use, maybe you want two templates. One that looks like this, where they just hold, and one that looks like this, where they just sit and attack. Actually, this is no, wait. Sorry, I actually messed up here. This is what they look like. Apologies. You want to make sure they look like this, because you want to make sure it has combat with 20. Basically, there is a total width possible, I think, is it 80? No, I don't think so. I think it's like 60. So those are some good basic infantry divisions. I will show you my preferred tank division. Now this is going to be what I usually use. You can use light or medium tanks. Just click on medium. Now I usually say that I think the best one to use is 40 widths. So we're going to use 10 medium tanks, and then we're going to use 10 motorized infantry. Now later you can upgrade this with mechanized infantry, which I think is a bit better in every way. So you can see that this is combat with 40. So yes, fuel usage This will show you how much fuel. This will show you how much manpower. What's up? I'm sorry. This will show you defense, breakthrough, armor. Armor basically means that it'll be harder to pierce the units. Piercing is basically just you can do more damage. It basically means that you can break through them quickly, and then there's also breakthrough, which basically means that you can basically, you can just read it. How many enemy attacks a unit can attempt to avoid while on the offensive, effectively allowing it to stay on the offensive longer. Weight basically means how heavy it is, how slowly it will move. Suppression basically means that how well it can suppress local resistance. Recovery rate basically means how fast it recovers. Organization is how organized it is. A higher organized division is probably beefier and better. HP is how much damage this unit can suffer before it is destroyed, and max speed is how quickly it can move, just, at the fastest it can. And that's basically everything. I think the things to go by now is you want to make 20 widths if you want to make small divisions, and you want to make 40 widths or 42 widths if you want to make big divisions. You can also make medium-sized divisions and make 32, 36, or 30 widths. There are a lot of specialized things, and I would encourage you to do plenty of research. I will also say that some of the best things you can do in the game is build Mountaineers and Marines. Marines and Mountaineers are really good. They just have better base stats, and they're even better in their certain areas. So, Marines are better doing naval invasions on beaches and stuff. Mountaineers are better in mountains and hills. So you always want to make sure you build these, because they're just good divisions to have. They're just special. You can only build a certain amount, though. I'm going to go over doctrines now. Very simple. There's the land doctrine. You can also access all this by clicking on this part, and then clicking here, and then you can see all the doctrines. There is a land doctrine. There is mobile warfare, which is good if you're going to use tanks. Superior firepower, which is good if you're going to use basically anything. It's probably the best doctrine right now. Grand battle plan is good if you're going to play really defensively. Don't use this one. Fleet in being is good if you want to use battleships. Trade interaction is good if you're going to use submarines, and base strike is good if you're going to use carriers. These two are probably the best. I prefer using base strike. Air doctrine. I personally use battlefield support because it basically means that you get better bombing against units. Strategic destruction basically means you do better bombing against factories and stuff, and strategic bombing. So if you're going to be bombing someone really hard, this might be the one for you. Operational integrity basically means that you are doing really just a bit of both. You get ground support and you get bombing. I prefer to use either of these, because usually I'm only going to be doing one. Either I'm going to be focusing on bombing factories or divisions. I will also quickly go over this little tab right here. These are spirits. I don't know if you'll have these. Depends on if you have DLC. These basically give you buffs. You do them with army experience. You also spend command power, which is just accrued over time, and political power to appoint these guys, which will give you daily experience. You can also do a theorist, which may help you. These guys will just basically help you research doctrines and everything. I will also go over this, which is the logistics. Well, basically shows you what you have, how much you're producing, and what you need. So this will just show you, I need 45 support equipment, 1,000 guns, and it also shows you how much you're producing or losing per day. This one here just shows you, you can also prioritize how much fuel is going to each branch, and how much you have in stockpile, which is also up here. You can also see resources, and you can also see what your factories are doing. Last thing I will do, I believe, actually I'm going to go through this stuff, and this stuff. So these are your laws and government. I'm just going to go over government. This is less stuff, but you will have less debuffs. This is more conscription, which basically means you get more manpower, but there might be debuffs. This basically means how many resources you're exporting versus importing. I usually think export focus is good enough. Civilian economy is your economy law. As things get more chaotic, you're going to want to move this up. You want to make sure you get to war economy or total mobilization. These political advisors help you improve things about your country. They all have buffs. Some of them make you communist, some of them make you fascist, some of them give you research speed. There are a lot of them. Usually, if you need something, it might be here. This is research and production. You can basically assign a company to help you build stuff. And you can also get a theorist here. So basically, if I want to make tanks, if I want to make heavy tanks, I can get better heavy tank stuff here. Or mobile tanks, or medium, or infantry, or armored cars. This is also your military staff. This is also available here, but it's just also over here. This is your political pie chart. This shows you how popular each party is in your country. Right now, Democrats are 64%, the Communists are 20%, and the non-aligned are 5%. Non-aligned is a bit misunderstood. Non-aligned basically just means you are not fascist, communist, or democratic. Usually you are a dictatorship, or an empire, or a kingdom. Sometimes you can be an anarchist, though. You know. Now, just because the political stuff is so one-sided doesn't mean there's some depth. You can hover over this to see what more you kind of are. You can see that it kind of gives you a description. It kind of shows you more about you. I will quickly go over the layers. There's map modes. So you can see that this is the default. It shows you divisions, it shows you countries, it shows you everything. This is naval. It shows you naval regions, and it shows you where you can tell convoys and fleets to avoid certain areas. This also shows you where things are going, where your convoys are coming from. You can also do strategic air, where you can select air and then choose to do stuff with it. So you can see that with this fighter group, I can choose to do interception and air superiority, and I can right-click, tell it to go there. You can also see that these bombers, naval bombers, can do these missions, and I can also always click and add new air wing, and I can add new air. In Strategic Navy, I will go over, you can select ships, like, let's just say like this, and you can have these ships here. You can also click on them right here, and you can do these missions. Patrol basically means they're just going to patrol an area. Strike Force basically means they're going to sit in port until an enemy task force is spotted. Then they will go engage that force. Convoy raiding basically means that you're going to try and raid convoys in that zone or zones. Convoy escort basically means you're going to escort convoys and try and prevent raids. Naval invasion support basically means you're going to escort naval invasions. Mine sweeping basically means you sweep mines. Mine laying is laying mines. Each of these is a admiral kind of thing. It's much like what would you say? It's much like the units. You get a guy, he can have a certain amount. Usually you just want to have this little thing here and click on it and tell it to do whatever mission you want it to do. There are also supply map mode, what I've shown you. There's terrain, where you can see terrain types. Resistance, where you can see resistance. Compliance, where you can see how compliant people are. Resource map mode, where you can see where others and your resources are. Infrastructure, where you can see how good or bad infrastructure is. And faction map mode, where you can see who's in what faction. There are also these little presets. You can turn on fog of war, which basically just means you can or can't see things. You can do the day-night loop, where you can toggle between seeing or not seeing day and night. You can see countries by unit or by allegiance. So you can see right now my units are blue or green because they're mine. If you turn this on right here, you basically won't see opposing countries' units. This will also show you where radars are and what they're looking at. Depends on if you want to see that. And this will also show you battle plans of your allies. There are, of course, this is just a general one. It's the ideology. These are just communist nations and fascist and non-aligned. You can see diplomacy. Yeah. There's theaters, there's music, there's all this stuff. There's so much more to explore. You can turn this on and see. You can also control the map through this. You can also do orders. I will also go over a few final things. This is the time. Basically, this is how fast time's moving. This is really fast. This is really slow. Space pauses and pauses the game, except in multiplayer. This is world tension. You can see when things have been happening. You can see this. You can see this. You can also see the current war. So you can see the Italians are war with Ethiopia. You can see casualties, factories, troops, and war participation, and the surrender. How close they are to surrender. You can also do these. This shows you an overview of your army. So you can see just general information for each of these. You might need to look at this if things are not going well or poorly. I will say, some hidden tips. If you're trying to send a division to a specific area, and it doesn't take a route you want, you can right-click and then shift right-click each single thing, and it will follow the path you're choosing it to follow. So you can see if I just shift right-click like this, it's going to do a crazy path, but, you know, how cool is that? So you can see I can make some art. I will also say, one thing you can do to improve your supply, if it's not very good, is click this button, motorization priority. You can see that the motorization priority basically means turn this up to get more supply, but you're going to be using trucks, so make sure to make trucks. I'm going to unpause the game here, now that we've unpaused, and let all my divisions move to the German border. Now this is important. This is the last thing I'm going to go over. Now that most of my divisions, except for the ones doing funny things around the border, I can click on this or whatever, and I can click, now that I have my offensive line drawn, I can click, the front line drawn, I can click the offensive line where I can right click and draw. Now you click this and click on a border to draw a line, and you can click to draw, and you can right click to draw a line using this. There are spearheads, which are more aggressive. There are fallback lines. You can basically draw a line and your units will position themselves along that line. There are garrison orders, or area defense, where you can basically click a bunch of states and you can tell them to guard certain things. You can tell them to execute plans in a certain manner, and you can also exercise the army, which will give you army experience. You can also right-click this button to delete all orders for that army or army group. I hope this guide was helpful. I hope you learned something. And if you didn't, you're lying. You can press escape to save the game, go to the wiki, and also get a life. Thank you for watching me tell you a lot about this game. I hope you learned something. I really hope you do. If you didn't, please tell me why in the comments. Like, subscribe, leave a comment.